Some performances are measured in awards, but the real stories are carried in silent glances and the weight of shared history. In a world where fame is often loud and fleeting, Sally Field has spent 6 decades building something quieter. Something that lingers longer than applause. Her legacy isn't just about the role she played, but about the people who stood beside her, the ones who didn't just act but listened, supported, and created something honest with her. Who are the ones that left her changed? What did she see in them that so many missed? Sally Field is more than a celebrated actress. She's an emotional historian of the film sets she's graced. Each co-star wasn't just a colleague, but a partner in something deeply felt and often unsaid. For Field, acting has never been a solo act. It's a conversation of hearts, of energies moving quietly between takes, of trust built not just with words but in the silences between them. The 6 actors she holds in her highest regard, Tom Hanks, Dustin Hoffman, Robin Williams, Daniel Day-Lewis, Paul Newman, and Julia Roberts, weren't chosen because they were the most famous. They were chosen because they were the most human. Tom Hanks wasn't just Forrest Gump to Sally Field's mama. He was presence itself, steady, intuitive, and deeply connected. Field often says Hanks doesn't just act in a scene, he listens in it. There's something sacred about working with someone who hears you fully, who isn't there to steal a moment but to share one. On set, their rhythm felt like something older than language. It was mutual care, where acting became less about performing and more about being. Hanks never tried to outshine anyone, and yet his glow made everyone brighter. His warmth didn't need noise. It wrapped around you, letting you know you were safe, that the work mattered. Field always speaks of him not with the enthusiasm of stardom, but with the gratitude of someone who's been seen. And then there's Dustin Hoffman, who for Field represents the wild, raw, unshaped edge of the art. When she watched Hoffman in Lenny, she saw something almost primal. An actor so willing to strip down his soul that the line between fiction and truth blurred completely. They didn't share much screen time, but Field felt the gravity of his work from afar. He wasn't afraid to look messy, to break the mold, to dig into emotions that most people tuck away. Talking to him at panels or bumping into him during award season, Field always sensed the same electric intensity. A man who took acting seriously not as fame, but as truth-seeking. He made her want to go deeper, to risk more, to trust the messy parts of herself. Robin Williams was different. Where Hoffman shook you, Williams embraced you. On Mrs. Doubtfire, Field found not just a co-star, but a protector of joy. Robin, with his quick wit and endless improvisation, somehow made space for everyone around him. He could have easily filled every moment with jokes and energy, but instead, he listened. When Field needed space, he stepped back. When a scene needed tenderness, he delivered it with aching grace. She remembers his gentle eyes more than his comedic riffs, the way he looked at her like what she said really mattered. Williams was the rare kind of genius who understood that the loudest brilliance sometimes comes from making others feel seen. And in doing so, he left something far more permanent than laughter. Daniel Day-Lewis, on the other hand, pulled Sally Field into a world that felt almost haunted by truth. During Lincoln, they didn't just play roles, they lived within them. Day-Lewis didn't step out of character, not once. Some found it extreme, but Field understood it. She welcomed it. Because in his unwavering commitment, she found a space where acting wasn't pretend, it was a kind of emotional surrender. They didn't just recite lines, they communicated with a kind of honesty that made everything else disappear. It wasn't a performance, it was communion. The weight he carried as Lincoln wasn't just historical, it was spiritual. For Field, every scene with him felt like walking through a memory rather than shooting a film. His stillness, his quiet, his insistence on truth. Those things weren't eccentricities. They were offerings. And she received them with reverence. Paul Newman didn't share a film set with Sally Field, but she didn't need to act alongside him to feel his impact. Their paths crossed in quieter, more human ways. At charity events, social causes, and shared spaces where the camera wasn't watching. Newman had that rare kind of dignity that didn't need a spotlight. He was cool without trying, strong without force, moral without preaching. Field always admired how he walked through the world with quiet purpose, how his eyes held a calm that made everything around him feel more anchored. He was a reminder that greatness doesn't always need to shout. Sometimes, it just sits in the back row, doing the right thing again and again. Newman's presence reminded her that character matters. Not the one you play, but the one you are. And then there's Julia Roberts, the youngest of the 6, but in many ways the one Sally Field speaks about most tenderly. When they worked together on Steel Magnolias, Roberts was still rising, still unsure of where she belonged in a world that can be brutally unkind to young actresses. Field saw the pressure she was under, the judgment, the whispers. And she made a choice, to be the shield Julia needed. She stood up for her, reminded others of her talent, and gave her the space to breathe. It wasn't about being a mentor. It was about being human. Field never sought to mold Roberts, only to protect the fire she saw inside her. That bond, born out of empathy and care, still holds weight today. Because it showed Field something essential. That lifting others doesn't lessen your own light. It makes everyone shine a little brighter. In sharing these reflections, Sally Field isn't listing names for the sake of nostalgia. She's telling us something vital about the kind of artistry that lasts. Acting at its best is a shared act of trust. It's the unspoken agreement between two people to be open, to be vulnerable, to carry each other when the moment calls for it. And every one of these 6 actors did that for her. Not with ego, not with vanity, but with care. Tom Hanks taught her the power of presence without pressure. Dustin Hoffman reminded her that emotional truth matters more than polish. Robin Williams showed her how compassion can live inside comedy. Daniel Day-Lewis offered her a sacred space of complete immersion. Paul Newman was a living example of how grace and humility can define a legacy. And Julia Roberts reaffirmed the quiet strength of being seen and supported when it matters most. Sally Field has spent a lifetime surrounded by talent, but it's clear that what she values most isn't fame or recognition. It's character. These weren't just co-stars. They were mirrors. Each one reflected something back to her, shaped the way she worked, the way she loved the craft, and the way she saw herself. And in return, she gave them something too. A fierce respect, an unwavering honesty, and a heart that never stopped showing up, take after take. You won't find these stories in tabloids or award speeches. They live in the spaces in between, in the way Hanks leaned in when she spoke, the way Robin made her laugh after a hard take, the way Daniel's eyes stayed locked in character even when the cameras stopped. They live in the gratitude she carries and the reverence with which she speaks their names. And maybe that's the secret of Sally Field's magic. It's not just in her performances, though they are extraordinary. It's in her memory, in the way she honors others, in how she makes you feel that every moment shared on set was part of something sacred. Because for Field, acting is not about pretending. It's about presence. It's about connection. And it's about walking away from a scene not just with a good take, but with a piece of someone else's soul tucked gently beside your own. So when she looks back on 6 decades of work, it's not the awards that come to mind first. It's not the fame, the roles, or the standing ovations. It's the faces of 6 remarkable people. 6 lives that intersected with hers in profound and unforgettable ways. 6 reminders that the greatest stories are not written in scripts, but in moments of truth between 2 people who choose to see each other, fully and without fear. And maybe, just maybe, that's what greatness really looks like. Not a spotlight. Not a headline. But a shared glance, a quiet trust, and a lifelong echo that says, you mattered. If this reflection moved you the way it moved us, take a moment to show some love. Hit that like button, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe for more stories that honor the beauty behind the scenes. Because sometimes, the most unforgettable moments in Hollywood aren't the ones caught on camera. They're the ones whispered quietly in the spaces no one sees.